Breaking news shortly ago, the jury did find Beverly McCallum guilty of the 2002 murder of her husband. And I'm honored here to discuss with us the prosecutor in the case, Doug Lloyd. Doug, again, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a long journey, 2 decades in the making. We know the defendant was in Italy. You had to have her extradited. And as a result of that, she faced the second-degree murder charges, not the first-degree murder charges. But today, justice is served. Tell us how you feel about this case and about this verdict.
You know what, I feel wonderful about this case. It's been something that Detective Donker started with it back in 2002. It was carried into our county by Jim Bompey in 2015. And to actually get it to the finish line today, to have the third defendant charged and convicted, it's something really important to Eaton County. You know, Robert Carabello was lost for a long time, and I think his family can be happy today that justice has actually been done for him.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Tell us about the defendant herself, Beverly McCallum. Were you surprised that she chose to testify?
You know, I really wasn't surprised because that seems to be her nature. She always has lived by the belief that manipulation is going to get her way. And I really believe that she thought if she took that witness stand, she was going to be able to manipulate that jury. And so, no, while you never expect a defendant to actually take the stand, when she did, we just had to listen to try to figure out what story she was going to try to tell this time.
Was this story different than you'd ever heard before? Because cross-examination was rigorous, it was aggressive. I think it was kind of a textbook, excellent approach to cross-examining a defendant.
Well, it really was. I mean, we obviously had the statements Chris McMillan had made, but, you know, Chris was a 25-year-old innocent bum at that time, and I think he was just going along for the ride. And Deneen Descharme, her daughter, the statements were similar, except for the fact that they turned them on each other. You know, each one claimed they knew nothing and it was all the other person's fault. And the problem was we had never actually heard from this defendant. She never gave a statement. So we weren't sure until she actually took the stand what statement she might have.
And so as you were cross-examining, did you feel, you know, so many of our viewers obviously love the courtroom skills and watching these trials and seeing justice be done, but they may not be privy to what it's like to hear a statement for the first time from her mouth, to see what she says up there on the stand, to prepare the questions and how you're going to approach her to convince the jury basically that she's not credible. Clearly that was done, but any insight into how you prepared mentally to be able to do that? Well,
I mean, fortunately or unfortunately for me, Detective Malpe and Detective Donker first brought this case to me in July 2015 when they first started coming here to Eaton County. So I've been fully aware of the case for the last 9 years, and that was what I was going to have to rely on, is what were the facts that we actually knew compared to what statements she was going to give. And just, you know, a quick example, for her to make the claim that there's a person being hit with a hammer, blunt force trauma to the head, but yet it's totally silent in the house. This is just a normal, you know, 2-story home. There's no way there's going to be that kind of distance that you're not going to hear that kind of injury taking place in the house. So it was things like that you just had to know and understand, and then figure out how to ask the questions to try to knock her off what she was saying.
And I can only imagine, I think it was evident you've lived with this case to be prepared and ready to go to trial. Can you tell us a little bit more, and I know we touched on it briefly, about the extradition and the decision to charge her not with first-degree murder, but instead do the second-degree murder?
Sure. Basically what happens is that the United States has treaties with other countries in regards to extradition. If our laws are similar to the laws that are in that country, then they put treaties together. And that's what happened. When we found out that this defendant was located in Italy, we sent over an extradition paperwork requesting first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and the burning of dead bodies. Italy agreed to that. The defendant then fought extradition and decided to take it to the European Human Rights Commission. And it was at that point that that commission basically ordered Italy that they would not agree to allow Italy to extradite unless we got rid of the first degree and the conspiracy to commit first degree charges. We were basically then put in a position of being told that if we want her back, we have to agree to go second degree. And so while we didn't like it, we felt that the only way we were going to be able to try to get justice for Robert, or justice was for Sicily, was to actually get her back. And so we acquiesced to that and agreed to bring her back on second-degree murder charges.
All right, and speaking of justice for Sicily, I got to tell you, probably no surprise to you, I think she captured everyone's hearts who witnessed her on the stand, what she had to go through, her resilience. What an incredible young lady that we all watched. How does this verdict impact her, knowing that her mother has now finally justice served, been convicted?
You know, I'm not sure that Sicily knows yet. I know that in 2014, when she finally heard that first version from her mom, that obviously changed her life. You know, Sicily said on the stand, and she said to us many times that, you know, when she got old enough to get out of the house, that's what she did. She wanted to live her own life. And Sicily's a great person, and she's a great mom, you know, and she's just doing everything right. And I think America's right to just believe in Sicily, because Sicily's worth believing in. And so I'm not sure yet. You know, I haven't had a chance to talk to Sicily since the verdict, but I will. And we'll talk about it. And I know that Sicily wants to come back for the sentencing in May, and so we'll fly her back up here so that she has that opportunity to actually stand in front of the judge and say what she wants to say.
And can you tell us a little more? Every state's a little bit different with how they proceed with the sentencing. We did hear that tentatively is set for May 23rd at 1:30 p.m. But what do you expect to happen at that sentencing hearing?
Basically how the sentencings in Michigan work, and it varies courtroom to courtroom, but you know, I believe Judge Cunningham will basically ask both the prosecutor and the defense attorney if we've received the pre-sentence reports, have we reviewed the pre-sentence reports, do we have any changes? If there are, they'll be discussed and dealt with. At that time, she'll ask the prosecution if they have any statements they'd like to make. Generally, the way I've always gone is I feel that it's important for the victims' families to be heard. And so if Sicily chooses to speak, she will definitely go first. Once Sicily is done speaking, then I will have my own words to say to the judge as to what I believe is the appropriate sentence for this defendant. At that time, once I'm completed, defense attorney will speak. If the defendant so chooses to speak, she will as well. And then the judge will pronounce sentence.
And I know we're almost out of time, unfortunately. Do you know what you're going to recommend for the sentence at this time?
Well, her guidelines for a murder 2 are 18 to 33. But in my opinion, I believe she was the leader of the group, and 33 is not appropriate. Judge Cunningham heard the plea of Chris McMillan. She witnessed the trial of Deneen Descharmes. She understands all the facts almost as well as we do. We'll be asking for the maximum that we can get.
All right, Doug Lloyd, thank you again so much for joining us and on this verdict today, guilty on both counts.